Hello guys, Crispy here, welcome back to another video. In this one, my friends, I'm gonna be testing a GeForce RTX 5060 Ti in Forza Horizon 5. This one is the Palit Infinity³ version of the card. I am running it with the latest Nvidia drivers and I'm not manually overclocking it. You can see all of its specs right here in Tech Power-Up's GPU Z, and this one is the 16GB version, and this matters a lot, especially in Forza Horizon 5, as you'll see. And over on the left, I am pairing it with a Ryzen 7 9800X 3D and 32GB of RAM. Let's get into it, shall we? And first up, let's go over the settings. I am starting at 1080p resolution using TAA, and I'll try some DLAA with DLSS4 as well, because I want to see the differences there, and we're using the maximum settings in the game. So this is it with TAA. We're getting around 140 frames per second right here. Everything is really sharp. The TAA in this game is pretty good, actually. I mean, you can't really see softness anywhere. You can see a little bit of aliasing, like for example over here, but yeah, it's super good looking in my opinion, especially for 1080p resolution, and in my opinion the TAA looks better than the DLAA from DLSS3, but I went into the Nvidia app over here and overrode the DLSS model preset, so it's using the latest super resolution preset, and so I will try it now with some DLAA instead of TAA. See the differences here. In terms of FPS, we lost about are you serious? What? No, I just wanted to stand still there and do a little bit of a comparison, honestly. Oh my gosh, okay. But yeah, we lost about 15 frames per second, 10 to 15, so there is a substantial difference there, but it also looks a little bit better. I still can see a bit of aliasing there on those power lines, especially while moving, but over here, there is no aliasing anymore, so what would you use, guys? I'm not sure, honestly. At 1080p resolution, I think I'd go for DLAA since it does look better, and I mean, the FPS are more than acceptable at the moment. Still high refresh rate experience. So let's just start counting those frames per second and go to the city area, which is very, very demanding. So yeah, DLAA, it's definitely looking a lot better than DLSS3's DLAA, which was quite shimmery and over-sharpened and stuff, although you can actually adjust the sharpening. But yeah, expect like 10 more FPS if you want to use TAA, by the way. Now, obviously, the 5060 Ti being a recent GPU, it plays Forza Horizon 5 absolutely fine, as it should, right? Because it's an expensive card still. I mean, it's $430 MSRP for a 16GB version, but that's still a lot of money. And come on. Being a latest generation GPU, I actually expected... What the hell is going on with the mouse? Like moving the camera around, it was stuck there for a little bit. Oh my. Alright, at least we still have our spoiler. But as I was saying, I still expected a little bit faster performance coming from this GPU. Maybe it's the DLAA here, you know, like getting us a few lower FPS than what I'd expect, but at the same time, yeah, it's not really all that impressive. Also, I am seeing a bit of ghosting here with DLAA enabled, my friends. Like you can see, especially when I'm on the road, over there is a halo effect. Yeah, that is not present when using TAA, so, So it's a double-edged sword, I guess. Can you please turn? I'm pressing A for a long time. Jesus Christ. Anyway, so you either have a little bit more aliasing with higher FPS and TAA, no ghosting. What the hell are you guys doing here? Or you have a really nice picture with DLAA, no aliasing pretty much at any times unless it's in power lines, but that's normal, I guess, at 1080p resolution. Yeah, it's really, really nice picture quality here in terms of anti-aliasing, but with a little bit of ghosting and a little bit lower FPS as well. And that's not really the end of the world. We're in the city area, by the way, which is very intensive. I don't know what's going on today. People are just getting in front of me every single time. Ah, boy. But anyway, around the city, as you can see, it still gets above 100 frames per second, 96.1% low, so it means it's a really smooth and stable experience. And I think I could deal with this little amount of ghosting anyway. seriously. I could deal with this little amount of ghosting and have almost a perfect anti-aliasing here in this particular title at 1080p resolution. Not sure about 1440p, because at 1440p it's a higher res, so TAA will also do a really amazing job there. No need for DLAA, but yeah, at 1080p resolution, this is it. Let's go ahead now and disable DLAA and enable TAA again, and I want to check it out just around the city here with that anti-aliasing technology. Yeah, it's a little bit more fuzzy, a little bit more aliased. I can definitely notice that, and I'm using 27-inch 1080p monitor right now. At least it's a native 1080p resolution at the moment, and it definitely looks a little bit worse, guys. Not gonna lie. Come on, dude. I always do this. I'm sorry. Alright, over here, 100 in teens, 125 average. Obviously, with DLAA, we went to the other roads and stuff like that. But yeah, it drops a little bit less here with TAA than with DLAA. I think with DLAA, it touched 90 FPS, and over here with TAA, it got 96 FPS minimum. 97, 1% lows, 98 right now. So yeah, it's a little bit of a difference on the image quality front, and also a little bit of a difference in terms of FPS, but overall it's going to be pretty much the same experience, so go with DLAA in my opinion. Let's try 1440p next with DLAA again, so no TAA at the moment, and the maximum settings. I've already tried it with TAA in the full review of this GPU at 1440p. It was a really great experience, getting high FPS, close to 100 most of the time, or 90 to 100, you know, and it was just beautiful, obviously. But here with DLAA, I think things are going to look a little bit better, and of course FPS are going to be a bit lower, but not to the point where it should drop from 60 or anywhere near 60 actually. Ooh, this is a nice jump. Wait a second, I want to do this, so we're just gonna go back in this road. Oh yes, okay, where's the jump? There it is, let's go. Oh yes! Can we get inside of the stadium? Yeah, there we go. We did it, guys. Good stuff. Now what do we do here? Oh, this is a nice place. Oh, we lost our spoiler. No. I want our spoiler back. Oh, Jesus. Okay, this is so interesting. It also gets way higher FPS, of course. There's no vegetation inside of here, so can we get out? Alright, we're back here with our spoiler, our license plate, GT710 for the win. The best license plate ever, obviously. And yeah, we're in the city area, getting way lower FPS at the moment. I just started counting them. Of course, people need to front collision with me. Yeah, very nice. Thank you for slowing me down. I don't care. Anyway, so instead of getting those 110s at 1080p resolution, we're now into the 80s and 90s. It's still really good, obviously. It's still DLAA, so it will look super sharp, super detailed. Zero aliasing right now, actually. Inside of the tunnel, and getting out of the tunnel there, it drops to 77 frames per second. That's the lowest that you'll see. And by the way, if you're wondering, yeah, a 4080 or 4080 Super, even a 4070, guys, is faster than the 5060 Ti 16GB GPU. So that's a little bit of a shame. I thought this GPU would at least match the RTX 4070, obviously getting nowhere near the RTX 4080, because that's 5070 Ti performance. But it's still very disappointing to me to see where this landed in terms of performance. Yeah, we do have those 16GB of RAM, VRAM, which is very nice indeed. You know, also, I noticed a little bit of aliasing on the power lines there when we were going up. So there is still aliasing, even with DLAA at 1440p. But as I was saying, guys, it is disappointing to see a 60 Ti tier GPU not even matching the 4070 or the 70 Ti tier from the previous generation. This is something that never happened, and this is why I think this GPU is super underwhelming, guys. For the price as well. I mean, 3060 Ti was $400 when that released, and it matched the $700 RTX 2080 Super, high-end GPU from the previous generation. I think for $430 they should have at least matched the 4070, but I talked about that in the full review video. We're here testing Forza Horizon 5. 5, but sometimes I like to share my thoughts still, okay? But anyway, let's turn this off and enable TAA, okay? So obviously this will give us a little bit higher frame rates. Yeah, 100s, we were in the 90s here. So again, around a 10% increase, maybe slightly less than that in performance. Yeah, down into the 90s already again. And at 1440p resolution, I usually say that TAA is the way to go here in this title. And it is, with GPUs that don't support DLSS. And if you don't do the override thingy in the Nvidia app with DLAA, oh my, and DLSS4, come on, buddy. It got stuck there, seriously. Anyway, but when comparing TAA and DLAA here back to back, I can actually tell a difference once again. So this is still a very good implementation of the TAA technology, which is usually super soft and blurry, and I don't like it usually in other titles. But here in this game, it's probably the best anti-aliasing technique outside of DLSS4's DLAA with the override. But if you do the override, guys, that's the way to go still at the 1440p resolution. Not sure about 4K though, because getting those slightly higher FPS will actually come in handy at 4K, but at 1440 I'd still stick with DLAA instead of TAA. Now let's turn this off and go back to DLAA and do 4K resolution next. Here we go, 3840 by 2160, and using the maximum settings. I think here at 4K resolution we should probably use like ultra settings as well and showcase that a little bit later. But let's do these 50s already, although this is most intense scenario obviously. 48 minimum. Not too bad still, you know, but it's not those 60 FPS anymore that I really enjoy in a game like this, so I don't think I would end up playing like this, guys. However, it is probably the sharpest that I have seen Forza Horizon 5 at. And again, I didn't really have a problem whatsoever with the TAA implementation in this game, and I used it for a long time, especially playing on my big 42-inch TV OLED. It was so gorgeous, a glorious experience there, guys. All right, but with DLSS4's anti-aliasing here with DLAA, it's even sharper. It's even sharper right now. But with those FPS, again, not really that viable of an option in my opinion. Let's stop it there though. 51 frames per second looking in this direction with DLAA, and let's disable that. Let's turn off DLSS technologies, enable TAA, and we went from 51 to 58. That's a bigger than 10% increase in performance. 10% would be 5 or 6. 5 actually. So major difference here. Whereas at 1440p and 1080p it was negligible. If you didn't have the FPS counter enabled, you couldn't really tell the difference between the FPS with the different anti-aliasing technologies. But here at 4K resolution, you get 60s most of the time, actually, getting out of the tunnel down to 54 frames per second instead of 48. Big difference there as well. And I mean, most of the time, you will achieve 60 FPS, as you can see. So that's not bad performance whatsoever. Again, if it matched the RTX 4070, it would be at 60 plus 100% of the time. So again, bit of a shame there, especially with those 16 gigabytes of VRAM. But I can't deny this is a pretty good experience here. Okay, dropping into the 50s again, inside of bushes and stuff like that. Very intensive usually. And honestly, at 4K resolution, I can't really tell much of a difference in terms of TAA versus DLAA. So, yeah, it's still extremely sharp right now. There is no shimmering anywhere that I can note. Well, sometimes those little lines on the roads there is. But you actually got to look for it. If you're not looking for the shimmery things, you won't notice shimmery things with the TAA stuff here. And it's actually really sharp. Once again, it's not blurry whatsoever like it is in other titles. Also, in terms of TDP, by the way, Forza Horizon 5 is one of those games where it never really reaches TDP in any GPU unless you're playing at super high resolutions. And by super high resolutions, I mean 8Ks and stuff like that, you know? So, yeah, it's not really reaching the 180 watt mark. This GPU also doesn't really reach that in most titles because it's pretty power efficient. I mean, that's probably the biggest advantage that it has compared to other GPUs. The performance per watt on this GPU is actually pretty incredible. Yeah, not too bad at all. It's a very playable experience, definitely more enjoyable than with DLAA. Also, I know for sure that one of you guys is gonna comment DL yay yay. Because when I say that with my Portuguese accent, it always sounds like DL yay yay or whatever. Anyway, let's do ultra settings at 4K now. Holy crap, okay, it's sandstormy weather right now. That's very interesting, but, well, let's try it out like this, actually. Yes, your eyes are not deceiving you. We're getting close to 100 FPS in the sandstorm at 4K native and ultra settings. Shut up!
Select. ESC
Bob!
back.
I'm just gonna go over it again so you believe me. 4K, TAA, again, I'd use TAA here, even with DLSS4's DLAA. TAA looks really good at 4K. Ultra settings preset. Yeah, that's incredible, isn't it? I mean, it just goes to show you how well optimized this game really is. And in terms of graphics, there is a slight difference between Ultra and Extreme, but it's very slight, and you do gain like 50% performance here, 50% more performance, by playing on Ultra instead of Extreme. So this is definitely a go, my friends. If you're playing at 4K resolution on Ultra settings, this game's super pretty. It's going to achieve a high refresh rate experience. Yes, it's not going to max out 144 Hz or 120 Hz, but in a game like Forza Horizon 5, I don't think that's needed, really. This already will look very smooth, way smoother than 60 FPS will, actually. And yeah, we can have basically a GPU consuming 140 to 150 watts of power, getting 100 FPS at 4K native resolution. That speaks loads of the optimization of this game. Because the GPU, again, isn't really that fast for a 60 Ti tier GPU, at least. Yeah, really, really good stuff over here. Let's see it in the city, though, and I'm curious to see it at the 1440p resolution as well. Utilizing this, oh my god! There goes our spoiler. You know what? I don't care anymore. Or I do. I'm just gonna do this. Look at that beautiful spoiler again. The car is intact, and I know I can disable destruction in the options, but I mean, it's fun to see what I can do to the cars, isn't it? It's my power. You know, if I was a Marvel hero or something, I would be the car rector for sure. Anyway, around here, 90s, 100 FPS. The lighting's starting to look really nice right now with the sun over there, you know, like we got some more shadows, more accentuated shadows. It looks really good, guys. And the reflections, man, nice, very, very nice. Dropping to 76 frames per second minimum. So that's the absolute minimum, even in races and stuff like that. Races are usually a few FPS lower than just driving around the city over here, you know. But it doesn't drop as much as it does in that tunnel area, so that's why I'm doing this here. This is a flawless experience, guys, now at 4K native resolution. There's no need to utilize like DLSS quality and stuff like that. You could, but I feel like in this particular title, DLSS doesn't really give you a ton more FPS. So yeah, we're getting like 100 FPS here when the cars go by 99 or 98. And I'm going to try it with DLSS, okay? So DLSS on quality, let's do that. Yeah, there we go. So this renders the game at 1440p resolution and upscales it to 4K, and usually you'd see a 30% improvement in frame rates compared to native in other titles. And here, It locked our FPS to 60 for some reason. Why? Why do you do this, game? It also enabled frame generation. Okay, I didn't ask you to do that, but alright. And instead of getting 100 FPS, we're getting 100 FPS. Are you serious? I can barely notice the difference in visuals though, but yeah, we do have more ghosting now. That's instantly noticeable. In terms of sharpness, it's basically the same thing as native resolution, so DLSS4 is doing an amazing job here with the quality DLSS, but again, it's not a difference whatsoever compared to native stuff with TAA. Now, it is going to be a big difference compared to the native stuff with DLAA, alright, because instead of getting those 100 FPS, we're now getting 70s. But damn, that's still a really good experience with DLSS4's DLAA at 4K resolution. Again, I can't really tell much of a difference in terms of the sharpness and in terms of the graphics themselves, aside from the ghosting that you get with DLSS4 enabled in this game. So I think I would still choose the TAA stuff, higher performance, basically the same visuals, right? And native resolution still. But I can't deny this is still a really good experience. And if you want TAA-like performance with DLSS for some reason, which is upscaling the image, it's not native anymore, it looks kind of the same. But if you do prefer like the sharpening of DLSS or something like that, and the anti-aliasing of DLSS instead of the TAA stuff, you can expect the same thing. Like DLSS quality is going to be the same as TAA native resolution. And you know what? Very important, if you end up buying this GPU, get the 16GB version. If you've been taking a look at the VRAM allocation and stuff like that, sometimes it does go over 8GB, like it's going right now. So that matters, of course. If you have the 8GB version, it will run out of VRAM. Even at 1440p extreme settings, guys, or even at 1080p extreme settings, if I'm remembering correctly. If you play for about like 20 minutes, the VRAM or 8GB of VRAM is not enough for maximum settings at 1080p resolution. Or was it at 1440p? It's one of the two. Now let's go back to 1440p resolution ultra settings now. I want to check this out with DLAA. Why not? Because that was actually better at this resolution than TAA. Yeah, you can expect a high refresh rate experience. It's higher FPS than at 1080p with the extreme settings or maximum settings. Not even extreme, again, like those were maximum settings that we tried at 1440p, 1080p, and 4K first. Inside of the city, things drop by a little bit further, as you can see, 120s, 130s at times. I'm curious to see it inside of the tunnel area though. Here we are, 110 FPS, so this area is way more intensive. That's why I like to test it here, of course. And now, tunnel area, let's get inside and get outside. And it drops to 96 frames per second minimum. It's a perfect experience, guys. I mean, there's no point in us testing this more. It's just absolute buttery smooth, you know? And this is without frame generation as well. If you want to use frame generation on top of that, let's try that out, unlock our FPS as well. It's a little bit of a shame that we can't use 4 times FG, though, in the Nvidia app. It doesn't let us overwrite that. But as you can see, 170s with FG. FG does make things slightly, ever so slightly softer, but in terms of input lags, it's going to be pretty much the same thing, and it's going to be an even smoother experience. So maybe if you have like a 240Hz 1440p monitor or 1080p monitor, enabling frame generation is going to be a good idea. It's going to make it way smoother than previously. Well, not way smoother, it was still 100 FPS previously, or 120, so very, very nice. But yeah, that's what the frame generation does. It just smooths things out, but it also smooths the graphics out slightly. But you know what? A real big test for this would be 8K resolution. Because we do have the VRAM to do it. 16GB is actually enough for 8K resolution in this particular title. I'm going to disable the anti-aliasing altogether, alright? No TAA, no DLSS or DLAA. Ultra settings at 8K resolution. And this is a bit disappointing, guys. Like, the higher the resolution, the worse it will be, obviously, in terms of FPS. But in other GPUs with higher memory bit buses and higher bandwidth and stuff like that, my god, you'd usually not see as big of a difference as you see in this GPU, especially going 8K. So this is pretty underwhelming, and the main issue is when you enable DLSS here at 8K resolution, you don't even gain frames per second. If you check this out at performance, DLSS, 8K, still applying. Oh my. It consumes more VRAM with performance DLSS than without DLSS. But yeah, you can see that the FPS are basically the same. Now it ran out of VRAM and it swapped a lot of things into RAM, and the power utilization is a lot lower because of that. So we'll need to restart the game to properly test this from now on. But as you saw, DLSS is a no-go at 8K resolution. And also, since ultra settings are a bit too much for this, let's do it on high settings now. 8K resolution right now, no TAA, but I think we can actually use TAA here, yeah. And the high settings preset. Oh no, TAA makes a huge difference, what the hell? We're getting 45, 46 frames, and if we disable TAA altogether, it goes up to 50s. Look at that. It's a huge difference, so let's do it without TAA. But this way, it's actually shimmery, even at 8K resolution. Damn, that's crazy. Let's start counting our FPS. The lights are flickering again. I don't know what's wrong with that. I don't think it's only on the 50 series that happens, but I've been seeing this issue for months at this point. On high settings, though, things do look quite a lot worse, unfortunately, but the game is running a lot better as well, so there's that. 60s inside of the tunnel. Actually, during nighttime, the tunnel is not intensive anymore, it's only during daytime, so yeah. But I can't really fast forward it to daytime, unfortunately. But yeah, you can see it gets close to 60 FPS average. It's not an amazing experience, honestly. I would never really do this. It's just for a bit of fun, basically. So that's been it for this one, guys. Thanks very much for watching. Again, this 8K section was just a little bit of fun. No one's gonna use it, really. And at 1080p resolution and 1440p resolution, you can max out the game completely without the use of any upscaler if you want to, and achieve super high FPS still. Really awesome experience. And then at 4K resolution, you'll need to drop things down to ultra settings to make it playable, but you can still play at native resolution in 4K res at the same time, which is pretty good. It still looks really amazing, like 95% as good as max settings, so you're not really losing anything there. So that's been it. Thanks very much for watching this video. I hope you guys enjoyed it, and I'll catch you in the next one very soon. As always, love you all. Bye-bye.